Hola. Ooh, hello, sister.
Hello.
We are back, y'all, with part two. Welcome in. We're talking all things community. Melissa Bauknight is back with us. Hi there,
Hello,
sister.
hello.
We are
Hi. I'm
back.
so happy to be back.
Part
Yay.
two. If y'all listened to last week, you know where we left off was like really diving into the sister wound place. If you're just finding us and you're listening in now, you want to hear a little more about being seen, the power of that, diving into some sister wound stuff. That was last week's. And we're going to just kind of continue in this space of trusting self, like you're creating your own self-trust when you're in community, which I think is really powerful to be able to find your voice, trust your voice, which then just is amplifying your own self-empowerment to ask for what you need, be seen, go make that connection, to the woman that could get you on stage or whatever it might be. And so talk to us, Melissa, about, I know you've had a whole journey in creating this for yourself, but like what could be a starting point for a woman to begin creating her own self-trust, in a Nova event? Because if you are just tuning in, Melissa is the founder of Nova Global. It's a community with lots of events and lots of amazing things. So I'll let you take it from here.
I think the first step would be when you found out about whatever that event was, whether it was virtual or whether it was in local, our local chapters are called Constellations. So whether you're in Denver, we're going to be launching in LA, Boston, and Scottsdale in the next few months. What I like to pay attention to is when I found out about this thing, what did I initially feel? Were you curious? Were you like, oh my God, I've been looking for that. I need this. Like what? So there's that part of making the decision that is the self-trust. There were women that showed up at our event and we had 60 women at our launch in November that had no idea what we were doing. It looked interesting on the internet. I thought I would come. And I'm like, you're so brave. Way to listen to your gut, because how scary to walk into a room that's a pretty brand new room that you really don't know what's going to happen and you don't know who's in the room. So everything starts with that decision, and the decision, to reference your podcast title, is to feel that desire, then feel the fear, and then say yes anyway, right? Then still show up in that space. So I think our self-trust starts before you enter that room. It's the decision to enter the room. And that when you have that feeling in you that is curious, that it's like you're being pulled towards something, to answer that, to not need to know all of the details and the plan. And, we get so interested in having control or knowing every single piece of the path and have a, very desired outcome or a specific outcome. And if we can let go of needing to know all the details and just trust that knowing to just show up, that's where it all starts. And then once you're in the room, we cultivate the environment to all the things. If you listen to the last episode, it's our way of being. We have 4 agreements that we share. We have a big board that's in front of the room that talks about how we be together, and the way in which we lead and facilitate. It invites people into that trust. Like, trust yourself to go there, to be bolder. Like the way in which we facilitate the workshops or the types of things that we're leading them through, it's done in such a way that it allows you to take those steps in a way that feels good for you.
I love the constellations too. It's such a high vibrational frequency.
Like, I'm over here like, wait, where are these chapters? Where do I show up? I want to be in all of those constellations.
Oh, I know you're all about
it. You can start one. We are really receiving the women that feel called to lead in their communities. We have our foundational pieces. We have an incredible leadership team. We have a wonderful board. We have amazing members, and we're building it together. We're not up here saying we've got this whole thing figured out and we know every single detail. that would be lying to you. But what we are doing is we are really creating in a very balanced way, I would say, the masculine and the feminine and the structure and the flow, and really listening to what people are asking for. And that's part of the reason why we're doing LA, Boston, and Scottsdale, is that these 3 women who I just love and cherish. And I almost am like, I can receive them in my life in the way in which they're showing up. But it's really recent that I've been able to do that, to be like Casey Baker is one of my best friends now. She's the founder of Woman Speak. She runs a global organization. Had I met Casey even like 2 years ago, I would have put her on a pedestal, set her aside, and there would have been a hierarchy, and she would have been an unreachable person for me. And now she's one of my dear friends, and she's starting a constellation, and she's so gifted in facilitation. So we're really just like looking at who's coming forward, who is feeling compelled to bring this to their local community. Because it's great to have virtual, it's very powerful, but there is nothing that compares to this in your hometown, out your front door, with the people that can really support you in your whole life, in the real world, right? So, Stacè, if you want this, we can build it together, girl.
We gonna talk for real.
We're talking. It's so fun.
We're all talking.
It's just so fun. Like, to be in the room, like what I want to create and what we are creating are the rooms that you walk into. Can I cuss on here?
You have a cuss pass.
Cuss pass. That you're like, fuck yes, I'm in the room with these people. I've been looking for you. Like, that's how I want our rooms to feel like at the Nova, of like, oh, thank goodness, I've been looking for you. It's been very hard to find you. As in, like, all the type of woman there that's just that, like, that really is craving something more, that's operating from a higher place, that is still showing up in their job and doing big things, but also they understand that there's a more holistic element to everything that we do. And so I love being in those rooms. And so I'm like, let's build those rooms for a living. Like, because those are the rooms we all are. I mean, we're craving the type of women that land in those rooms. That's what we want. We're done with the bullshit. We're done with like, hi, I'm Melissa. This is what I do. Hi, let me slash you with my business card. Hi, like, let me mask myself so I can be who you need me to be. Like, we're so done with that shit. So I am having a little moment over here where I get real passionate, but I'm just so tired of those rooms that don't feel good. I'm tired of them.
They don't work.
They don't work.
They don't.
For anyone. Men too.
No.
Anybody. Like, nobody. They work for nobody. Thank you.
I'm glad to hear you share that journey. Yes, please. Yes, I read all the things, and I always want to know, like, those are words on a screen and that's wonderful, but like, who is this being? Like, what is really happening? So I was really curious about what made you decide to go and create something that didn't exist that you wanted. Like, instead of what some people choose to do is just wait, like, well, somebody will create it. Somebody, I'll find it somewhere, or I just will do without. Like, what made you say, nah, we're not doing without. In fact, I'm going to go and create it, and I'm going to welcome people into it. Where'd that come from?
Ironically, yesterday was 8 years from the day that I got the idea, and I had done a workshop with 5 other women, and it was called Create Your Ripple. And so it was all about discovering your true gift and then how to be of service in the world. And during that experience, I had this download, and my friend at the time was, she's still my friend, but at the time she was working for Tony Robbins, and she was the lead production or head of production for him. And so I was like, Kristen, this is the thing. We're going to do this. We're going to have chapters, blah, blah. You're going to be my production person. This is going to be a thing. But I knew it wasn't a thing like tomorrow. I just knew that it was going to be a thing. And then so I did wait, but it wasn't in a passive way. Like, I was very actively becoming the person who could hold the frequency and had the enough knowledge and the courage to bring it to existence. So it's been a long journey. There's a lot that's happened in that 8 years. And what I will say as far as why now is I just knew. I just knew. I did this sacred business mastermind earlier this year called The Council with a woman named Sarah Jenks. And there was 8 of us in this group. And was my intention that I brought into it, is like, I want to create a membership community that stands for X, Y, and Z. And we really tapped into our highest self through that container. And I found my belonging for the first time in my life. And I knew that I wanted every woman to be able to feel this way. And I knew that I knew the power of what was happening in my own life. And I'm the kind of person that is like, okay, I got this thing now. I want to give it. Like, I want other people to be able to feel this juiciness. And so I just made a decision, and I got really bold. I'm like a bold person, but this feels like the boldest I've ever been. And I actually used AI, and I used ChatGPT to find so many answers. And I was like, I don't know, how do you start a community like this? I've never done this. So we can dive into that. But I really leaned on the people in my life, the newfound feeling of belonging, made a decision to do it, and leaned heavily on the thing. Like, I didn't know so much. So I just got busy figuring out, what do I know that I don't know? And then I've found out a lot of what I didn't know that I didn't know along the way.
I'm hearing a lot of resourcefulness. And
Yeah.
as you were sharing, thank you for, like, hey, it was 8 years, because we've been on a journey, you and I, and because I know you, and, we've been in container and then had each other on different things. I've been on your podcast. My heart was just exploding for you when you were sharing that. And I really want to reflect to you, like, what a journey, because you followed, and have so intentionally followed. You had the ripple connection. And I remember being on that show, like, you were just talking to leaders in the community. And it was all about how your connection can ripple out into your world, and then it's like, you've also grown and had, like, really successful business and community within Beauty Counter, within that, like, wellness place that was well before the ripple connection. But you followed these, like, nuggets, and you've been willing to shift how you show up, and the titles that follow you, of, like, Melissa, ripple connection was like, that's how I knew you. Ripple, ripple, ripple. Anytime I heard that word, it would be Melissa rippling out into the world. To now just, like, follow and allow it to play out over the years until it was so woven into your cells, where it was like, it's Nova, and there's constellations, and thank you. And now here we are. And to be able to receive the support that you need to be able to launch something so big, I'm just, like, cheering you on the biggest.
Thank you. Can I speak to that?
Sure.
Please.
It's not been easy to shift identities. I have, like, almost had to break up with, like, even just the process of naming the Nova. I mean, I wish somebody was videoing that entire, like, multi-month situation that was happening, because I was like, but the ripple connection is me. And I was so attached to what it meant and how it had been in my life and what it represented. And I couldn't, like, I almost had to, like, I felt like I was killing off a part of me, which wasn't true at all, because we bring these parts of ourselves through. But every single stage, I know y'all were both in corporate. Like, I had a 15-year corporate career. Like, leaving corporate to do Beauty Counter was, like, I think it took me probably a year to settle into that at minimum. And then when I started to coach, I was like, oh my gosh, what do I do with Beauty Counter? Do I leave it behind? Like, I feel like it had to be this black and white choice. That took me a solid year, to maybe longer, to, like, migrate more into business coaching. And so I just want to speak to that, because we need to give ourselves grace to, like, settle in to where we are. It doesn't happen overnight, and it can be excruciating. And there can be a lot of, what the hell's happening right now? Like, who am I? And the dust does settle, but it's not overnight. So I'm glad that you brought that up, because you have seen me through different chapters. But I want people to understand that the discomfort is incredibly normal as you're expanding into sort of the next chapter of who you are. But don't forget about the old. I feel like I'm in this big oh gosh, what do we even want to call it? Like an integration of all my past selves has been happening lately. I feel like I've been really going back and retrieving some of the pieces that I was like, no, not that person. I'm putting her in the closet and she's not allowed to come out anymore. And so I feel like I've been going back and like collecting like these versions of myself and feeling more whole in who I am now and allowing those parts to like come back into who I am. I don't know if that is making sense to people, but I think sometimes we think these parts, we just like have to leave them behind. And really we bring them with us, but we can choose, we can consciously choose that.
So much to say. It's like, oh, let the words come out. Oh, that's beautiful. And I thank you for being that transparent with the experience, because I know that there's so many people out there. Look, I was one who live a completely compartmentalized life. And to hear you talk about integrating these identities is powerful for people. Back to last week when you were saying it's envisioning the possibility. Like you have to believe that there's a different possibility. It could happen differently. That's huge for so many people, no matter where you are and no matter what the topic is. Like that whole idea of giving yourself grace to really integrate your identities and to settle into them and recognize, look, it takes what it takes. It takes the time it takes. It takes the energy, the effort it takes. It just takes what it takes. And hearing you that for 8 years, letting it take what it takes brings you to this, which is so needed by so many people. Like this whole concept of Nova is needed. I was just on a sister circle call before this earlier today, and we were talking about how needed all of the sister circles are, how needed all of the sense of community based things, all of that's needed for that sense of belonging that you talked about. But if we don't do what you just described, we don't get to the 8-year thing. We don't get to the thing that was supposed to be birthed in us. We just don't get there. I love, even as I'm thinking about still, like no matter what was going on, like you're still Melissa from Ripple Connection. You're still Melissa from Beauty. You're still
Yes.
all of who you are. And it's all integrated for such a time as this to birth Nova. Like the idea and the seed was birthed back then. But all this that you've been doing, like it brings it to full fruition. And that, for me, makes me feel like the community you created is a safe place, because this was not done lightly. This was not some, oh, you know what would be cool? Everybody has a sister circle. Let me just create one. Like this was very intentional at a deep, deep level. And there's not a question in here. This is really gratitude. This is really just reflecting back to you what I'm hearing you say and how profoundly it will affect so many people watching and listening. And I'm giving such gratitude for you sharing it. Well, one, having the courage to live it. And then two, actually share it. So thank you for that.
Thank you. I'm deeply touched by that. Yeah. And it's just so important that we're honest, because it's bullshit. Like this overnight success nonsense is not true. And it's everywhere. And it can really make you feel like you're not doing something right, or that you're not enough, or that you don't have what it takes, or you're supposed to be further along than you are. And I promise you, I have those thoughts a lot still. So I really believe in being honest about the journey, because you need to know that wherever you are and however it's going is how it's supposed to be going. And it's going to take, to your point, it's going to take what it takes. And I would never have birthed the Nova if somebody told me 8 years ago when I had that thought, if they were like, okie dokie, here's your crystal ball. Here's what you're going to have to go through. Here's where you're going to have to become. Here's how much money you're going to spend on improving yourself. Here are the fights you're going to get in with your husband. Here are the friendships you're going to lose. But here's all the beautiful things. Like if somebody had laid it out for me, I don't think I would have said yes. I probably would have been like, that looks like a lot of work. I'll probably just stay in medical device sales.
Yeah. And because that's where you were at. You couldn't even expand yourself there. Yeah.
No, like, thanks so much. I dodged a bullet. So I do think that like there is the beauty of the unknown and just taking one step at a time, because we don't need to know. We shouldn't know.
Yeah.
That's so beautiful. I'm glad to hear you share it the way that you share it. And listen, let's be clear. These are messages I want to make sure women who are wrapped in the skin that I'm wrapped in, Black and brown women and all other kinds of women, hear these messages too, because there are so many things that are birthed. And then it's all the stuff you said, like, oh, it's going to take that long. Oh, I have to shift identities. Oh. It's like, yeah. And what you have is needed. What you have is absolutely needed. It was given to you for a reason. It's yours. So you get to birth it. And I know that in lots of Black and brown communities, we don't hear that message, or if we hear it, we don't necessarily see it modeled.
The proof.
This, exactly, the proof. And so this is hopefully really resonating with all the people, all the women, all the Black and brown women who are saying, I got this thing. I know there's a sense of community that people need, but I don't know. I don't know. Like, I hope they witness this and go, oh, hell yeah, let's go. Let's go. And they say yes. Say yes to community that you want to be in. Yes to community that you want to create. And here's some living proof in case you didn't see it somewhere else. Here you go.
Well, and to reflect to you, Stacè, you are the living proof.
Yeah, you're it.
You get to be that bridge 100%, which is why Still was birthed. There's no way I could be doing this without you, and vice versa. Like this is the bridge that we talk about all the time.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, for everyone out there watching, wherever whatever skin color, whoever you are, just take the nuggets that are yours and use Stacè as your proof, Melissa as your proof, me as your proof. Whatever was one of the words or sentences that could be proof, take it in like a deep breath. Let it sit in your heart. I was going in. I was going to go on. We're going to close.
Preach, woman. Let's go. Yeah.
I'm like, I'm here for it. Let's just ride this one out.
We're gonna have a circle. We're having
the circle right now. We're having it right now. It's happening. But I'm so thank you for mentioning that, Stacè, because it is true. It's like, it's one thing to see a white woman doing something, and it's quite another to see somebody that resonates with you, right? That has your same skin color or background or socioeconomic status, and they've created something. And so it's not enough to just see somebody else do it that has zero relatability to you. There's a relatability in, we're human at our core, right? We have the same core desires. Yes. There's a relatability to some extent, but it's different, right? Like, I don't have the same struggles. I'm privileged as far as that goes. And so I love that you called it out. And that's something that we're really working towards, is creating a space where all people that identify as women can feel at home, and that we have examples of women who are maybe transgender, right? Who are Black and brown, that we have a community that is not just representative of me, that it's not the Melissa Bauknight show around here. It really is like, that's so important to us, to me, that there is a home for you, regardless of what you look like, and regardless of what your background is, and regardless of what sexual orientation that you have, or if you don't even know what that is right now, if you're exploring that, that you still feel like you belong, right? Because it's so, we just all deserve that. We all deserve that.
Amen.
Beautiful.
Aho.
Straight from the heart.
From the heart.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for your amazing, beautiful, ample time that you've sat down and spent with us, Melissa. And thank you, sister Stacè, for always being on this journey together.
Thank you.
Thank you for everyone out there, wherever you're tuning in, listening. If you're watching us live on YouTube, mwah, you can see the kisses and virtual hugs being sent your way. We will see you next week. You can grab all the information, the Nova Global, if you want to be in the know and how can you be connected. All of it's in the show notes. To reach Melissa is all in the show notes. As you can see, heart is open and she is here to welcome you all in as we've welcomed you all in. So until next time, mwah, we love you.
Love you.
Bye.